Okay, welcome. So today I wanted to offer a video about I loved boarding school, talking about whether that's truth, whether that's denial, and also about betrayal and betrayal trauma. So enjoy. Okay, so this week, yesterday, Charles Spencer's new book, A Very Private School, has been released. I've not received my copy yet. That'll be coming in the next few days. But I noticed on the Telegraph on the Monday morning, someone from his school basically saying, I hear this is his experience of Heatherdown, but I loved it. And I'd love to just talk a little bit about, as an ex-boarder, I often come across people who say I loved it. And I just wanted to look at the psychology of that a little bit and just explore, because we're going to come across that quite a lot. So enjoy. So, the first thing I would suggest about this idea of truth, I loved boarding school. The truth is that there are some people who loved it. In my clinical work, I've seen it's about 5 to 10% of people loved it. And also my 7 years at boarding school, I noticed on each year, 1 or 2 people seemed to really thrive in that environment. They weren't picked on or bullied, and they seemed to do okay. So that's the reality, that I love boarding school. Yeah, for some people, it was also a space, their boarding schools I've heard recently, really good pastoral care, they were able to go home regularly. The food was great. It was just a really great environment. So, there's that truth there. My therapist that I worked with for about 2 years, a Jungian analyst, she was a contemporary of Jung. She'd worked 50 years with patients, and she said to me once, she says, I've never met anyone who hasn't been negatively impacted by boarding school. Nick Duffel also points out that although we might not have been traumatized by boarding school, we still had to survive, because the underlying truth is there's still no parents there. So we're going to unpick it a little bit further, but that's the first bit, is just, 5 to 10% had a really good experience. The other thing about Nick Duffel saying survival, it's either the complier or the rebel or the crush. That's the strategic survival personality. That's how we survive it. The other thing, then we move into denial. I loved boarding school. Is that denial? So Paul Williams, who is a psychiatrist, I was listening to him talk last week, hopefully coming on my podcast, and he was talking about this idea of mirror neurons. So they've done experiments. It sounds a bit cruel, the experiments, but of putting monkeys into cages next to each other and then wiring them up to ECG machines, and then giving pain to one monkey, and then seeing the responses and the pain circuits on the brain and the monkey which is just next to them, and showing that they actually received as much pain, if not more, the monkey that wasn't actually receiving the shock treatment. So to see someone else suffering. And I think this is really important to see, is that, if you went to a lovely boarding school, you wouldn't have seen that bullying. But as I read through all the biographies, John Peel, Tony Blair, Richard Branson, David Cameron, they were all beaten. They were all sexually, not all of them, but certainly Richard Branson, John Peel was sexually abused. Tony Blair was beaten. David Cameron was beaten. So these people are being beaten and they're in that environment. So although I say I loved it, I wasn't given negative attention. I saw that from others, and that really negatively impacts me. And in her book, which is interesting, I can't see it at the moment, Trauma and Recovery, the psychiatrist Judith Herman says that, if we are watching someone else being abused, then that really negatively impacts us as well. We feel guilty. There's some shame there. So that's the second thing about denial. There's also this idea of dissociation. We say, I loved it, but have we dissociated? I've got my 3 levels of the trauma healing. 1, 2, 3. You've got first one is denial, dissociation. We're in denial of what happened. And so it might be, we say we loved it, that's the way we have to survive. Oh, no, I can't look at it. I can't look at it. And what happens then, the psyche, we project that out onto other people. We say it's them, it's their issue, it's their problem. It's not me. And in relationships, this can be, very difficult. And I received an email from a wife who's married to an ex-boarder last week. And she said to me, he says he loved it, but he can't feel his emotion. He can't connect to his emotions, and it's, destroying our family. As Nick Duffel says in an article in The Guardian, he says that, we cannot make good decisions without emotional information. This comes from Professor Antonio Damasio. We can't do that. And therefore, when we are in a relationship, we struggle to, if we can't feel, we struggle to make connections with others, relate. So, that's another aspect there, this idea that, yes, I might have said I loved it, but am I projecting those parts onto other people? And I think this is sometimes, I've had clients who say, I've loved boarding school. And I say, great, you might be in the 5 or 10%. Then I say, well, do you have any of these symptoms? And I go through some of the symptoms that I've noticed with clients, Nick Duffel talks about in his books. And they are workaholism, struggle in intimacy, struggle in parenting, inability to relax, isolation, inauthenticity, struggle sexually, being a bully as well. But the main one, he says, is really struggle with emotion, can't feel. And when I ask them, and also addictions as well, I ask my clients, right, have you got any of these? And also sleeping problems. I say, yes, I've got all of them. So you might have loved it, but it still has impacted you in some way or other. And some people, because of that projection, they go, oh, no, I don't have any of those symptoms. So what I often will hear from the wives, they go, or the children, oh my God, he's so much that. Because we can't see it anymore, we've dissociated, we've put it outside of ourselves. I'm not the weak one. I'm not the childish one. You're the childish one. You're the weak one. And you're the vulnerable one. And what we need to do is start to own that projection. Go, where's the vulnerable one within me? Where's the weak one within me? And starting to love that. So that's the next level of it. Then the final aspect is just around betrayal trauma. And this kind of links into that, I loved it. So Jennifer Freyd, in her book by Annabelle Gonzalez, the psychiatrist I spoke to last year, or maybe the year before on my podcast, she says, Jennifer Freyd proposed the idea that betrayal is the key element that makes an experience become traumatic, especially in the context of childhood. Nick Duffel, in his book Wounded Leaders, page 108, he says, and betrayal is another of the great unrecognised but cherished blood sports of British boarding life. Okay, so just to see we've been betrayed, we might love it, but we say, we've been betrayed. What this then done psychologically, and this is from Jennifer Freyd, from a paper she wrote in, I think it was 1994, so a long time ago. She says, betrayal trauma theory suggests that psychogenic amnesia is an adaptive response to childhood abuse. When a parent or other powerful figure violates a fundamental ethic of human relationships, victims may need to remain unaware of the trauma, not to reduce suffering, but rather to promote survival. Amnesia enables the child to maintain an attachment with a figure vital to survival, development, and thriving. Okay, she then goes on to say, Betrayal trauma occurs when the people or institutions on which a person depends for survival significantly violates that person's trust or well-being. And she talks about betrayal blindness, which I think is key. Why we said I loved it is this is a survival mechanism. It could be a survival mechanism. Betrayal blindness is the unawareness, not knowing, and forgetting exhibited by people towards betrayal. Victims, perpetrators, and witnesses may display betrayal blindness in order to preserve relationships, institutions, and social systems upon which they depend. So we can't see what's happened to us. We can't see the trauma. Yes, for some people it might have been a great experience, but for many, they say to me, oh, well, nothing happened to me. Yes, but you see it. You saw it. And what we do is this dissociative amnesia, this psychogenic amnesia, we kind of, it didn't happen, because that's what we need to do in order to survive, So I think that's really, really important. So, yeah, just some ideas today, again, reflecting. Is it the truth? If someone says I loved it, yeah, certain people really loved boarding school, and I think that's, it's great that there are those people there. But as I say, it's about 5 to 10%. Could it be denial? In order to survive, we've dissociated, we're projecting that onto another. If you are doing that, let's draw that back in. What's that within me? What am I feeling? If you're not sure what you're feeling, it's like you can reconnect to that. As a friend of mine said, who went to boarding school, when he was doing meditation 20, 30 years ago, someone said, the instructor said, feel your body. He says, I couldn't feel it. He dissociated. So part of our work, as Annabelle Gonzalez talks about, is to feel the physical body, and then connecting in with the emotions, learning the language of that again. So I hope this is helpful. Just some ideas and thoughts. I'm going to be speaking to a guy from my school who I was friends with. We shared a study together. So just hearing, he's a consultant pediatrician, so he works with safeguarding. Going to be talking to him next Monday, and then that will go live next Friday. And then the week after, I'm speaking to Charles Spencer, which I'm excited to be doing. Going to be reading his book over the next few weeks, and then speaking to him. So exciting news there. Thank you so much for your support. Any questions? Does this land? Does this make sense? Anything maybe I'm missing? Really appreciate that. Thank you.